We are going to look at slide 7 of the Desmos that says solve for all solutions. It has the equation x to the third plus 7x squared plus 14x plus 8 equals 0. And it tells us, given that x equals -2 is one solution, what other factor do we know? Well, if we know that x equals -2 is a solution, then we know it came from the factor of x plus 2. Remember how it's always going to be the opposite sign. So x plus 2. So now that I have the factor, what that tells me is I now have my divisor, and I can divide my cubic. So here we go. Let's set up our box. So this is a cubic, so it's going to be a 3 by 2. So I know I need 3 columns, 2 rows. Our divisor goes here. And now I start with what I know to figure out what I don't know. So I start with my leading term that I know is x cubed. And what I don't know is what has to go up here on the top. Well, that would have been an x squared. Because x times x squared gets me x cubed. Now that I know that x squared, I can use it to fill in what I don't know in this bottom box, and that the bottom box is 2x squared. Now, remember that this diagonal right here is going to be the sum of what's in this bottom box and what's in that top box, and that sum has to be 7x squared. So I'm asking myself 2x squared plus what gives me 7x squared? Well, it's got to be a 5x squared. And so here I go again. I'm using what I know of this 5x squared to figure out what I don't know. And I know that to get 5x squared, I multiplied x by something. Well, the only thing that something can be up here is a 5x. So now I'm using the 5x that I now know to figure out what I don't know, and then the bottom is going to be 10x. Again, this 10x is diagonal. I need to look back at my original problem, and I see that the sum of this diagonal needs to be 14x. So if I have 10x, I'm going to need 4x. And using what I now know of the 4x to figure out what I don't know, well, I know that x would have been multiplied by something to get 4x, and that something would be 4. And lastly, 4 times 2 does in fact give me 8. So I have now just divided, and remember, this up here, my quotient, is what makes up my factor. So step 3 says use your answer from step 2 to write in factored form. Well, remember, factored form is going to be my divisor times the quotient equal to 0. That would be the factored form. And the last thing, right, the whole original problem is asking me to solve, and we know when it's asking me to solve, it's asking me to find the values of x that go in and give me 0. Well, because this is a cubic, I should expect 3 answers, and I'll see that this first factor here is going to give me 1 answer, and then my second one here is going to give me another. So now I just have to solve it. Let's start with the easier one, the first one. I'm going to subtract 2. Okay, x equals -2. That's that first piece. Now the second piece, okay, x squared plus 5x plus 4, I need to solve that. Well, with this way, I have a couple options, right? First, since I have an x squared and not something like a 3x squared or anything like that, let's see if I can solve by factoring first, right? And to solve by factoring, I'm finding the two numbers that multiply to be 4 and add to 5. Well, my options are 1 and 4, 2 and 2. Well, 2 plus 2 would be 4, 1 plus 4 would be 5, so I could use these right here, 1 and 4. So x plus 1 x plus 4 equals 0. And now, if you notice, I'm actually back into a similar place here as I was here, right? I have my two factors set equal to 0. Again, I have my two factors here set equal to 0. We'll break it apart again. Take each piece, set it equal to 0, just like we did above. Now I subtract 1, subtract 4. And notice I get my 3 answers. So x would equal -2, -1, and -4. Now, let's say that you didn't notice the factoring here for the x squared, or you just decided to go the quadratic equation route. So x squared plus 5x plus 4. Well, remember, this is ax squared plus bx plus c, a, b, c. Now I can use my quadratic formula. So it's going to tell me that x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So now I'm just going to keep simplifying this down until I can handle it a little bit better. -5 plus or minus. And what you notice, I'll end up with -5 plus or minus 3 over 2. I actually don't end up with imaginary answers here like I did before. But because that's the case, I need to keep going, right? So -5, we split this into 2. So x equals -5 plus 3 over 2. And x equals -5 minus 3 divided by 2. Well, you can just use your calculators. You can just type it all in, and if you do that, make sure you put parentheses around the numerator. And you end up with -2, which gives you a -1. And you end up with a -8 over 2, which gives you a -4. So notice -1, -4, which matches the same answers we got when we factored. So if you can factor, notice how much quicker the factoring was. But notice you still get the same answer with the quadratic method. Either way, your final answer is x equals -2 and -1 and -4. Those are your solutions.